I will switch to English because my presentation is in English. So hi everyone, welcome after lunch. It's so good to be here. Some nice speeches today. Actually, I wanted to start with the video I watched just before during the break about the rail car. It's quite disturbing for me. I felt quite stressed, this guy maneuvering all over. I think it was Bydgoszcz, so that was crazy. Anyway, my today's speech would be from an agency perspective, but I really believe that our findings are quite universal for both internal and external teams. As Pavel mentioned before, I am a CEO of Movade. We are a product design agency based in Gdańsk, Poland. So there will be a story from our point of view. So my topic for today is when user-oriented product designers meet conservative software enterprises. And the previous speaker said a few words about, two words colliding, the creative world with the more conservative world. Creative meaning designers, facilitators maybe, and more, conservative meaning engineers, etc. So this will be a story about, very hard relationship with my company, our company existence was actually at stake. How we stopped building trenches and starting understanding our rivals. And just please mind the language we used. I used the word rivals because it was what we felt at that time. And it's really, really hard to change our mindset. And in the end, how it affected our approach with literally every client from now on. And so this is an example of the project that changed our approach, I think, for life. And I really believe that it helped us being better consultants, designers, and leaders. So a few words about myself. My name is Mateusz. I'm a former usability expert. I believe that lots of us, started in this industry years ago as a usability expert. Then I shortly become in love with qualitative research, and I am a researcher mostly as an expert. Soon after that, I started to have an affair with design sprints, and I'm conducting design sprints for almost 5 years now, or even more than 5 years. Co-founding a company made me a manager by need. It was very hard for me. Certain skills I had to, learn a very hard way, but I become a leader. I like to love that by magic, because I had to put my skin in the game, and I slowly become a design leader. So the last thing about me is that I constantly question everything, which means I question my approach. I question my approach as a company. So asking questions like, are we doing the right thing? Are we doing this the right way? Is this the really best approach? So to the point that my head almost explodes from time to time. And I doubt a lot. And this is what happened as well as while working, on the project I will tell you about. But the final thing about me and the statement that says lots about me, about my current state, is that I used to believe that the strategy is the highest level of expertness, but now I know it's the execution. And I used to believe that and felt kind of proud while working on strategy, having an impact, making decisions. But what I focus right now is how to get the ideas implemented and the products rolling, because I really believe that the world, needs us more executing and not only ideating. So that's the small change, that's the small twist. So Mateusz in 2020 is the guy that really believes in execution. But getting back to, the roots of this topic and how it all started. So the short intro about how typically project starts for us. There is a fast kickoff where the company is so intent in working with us, with you maybe, that they booked flight even before talking to you. They just came next week. They book Monday, Tuesday, and they want to start right away. So you know what I mean probably. Second one is design sprints, which I like, but they are either the client was struck with design sprint virus, let's say, being a buzzword, or they really believe in the approach. And all in all, it's about providing something tangible within a finite time. The third one, yes, and our favorite, the long negotiations. Like you spend 6 months negotiating for a 1 month project, and there's a scope talk, obviously legal talk, accesses, passes, so much that I didn't have enough space to put it on the list. And there were times, in the end where, and still are, I believe, where the time and material model was a holy grail. And I have to ask you a question: is it really a holy grail? Because being a doubter myself, I asked some questions to me. Do we really want to jump straight to the work without knowing each other better, like us and the client? Isn't this something like an arranged marriage? Maybe, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but sometimes it felt like it is, where you commit to something or someone without really knowing stuff. So shouldn't we feel a little discomfort, with jumping straight, let's say, to the action? Okay, but what's the bottom line here? Just to be on the same page. Clients hardly understand the value of your work, and they don't want to pay lots of money for something they don't understand, and that's quite obvious. We are like too focused talking about the processes rather than results. We are not working in the void, and I mean that clients often have their own stack, technological stack, design stack, processes, people, some debts, some expectations, maybe some experiences as well. After all, we felt in 99% of the time that after this initial phase, let's say butterflies in your belly phase with every client, there is a collision, like say expectations versus reality. Before you jump straight to the project, there's some nice tension, some nice tingling, maybe, you're so excited, you want to change the world, the client is happy to do stuff new way, both internal and externally. But you often, and this is precisely important if you are an agency or a consultant or a freelancer, you often don't have domain knowledge. And one day you might working, on the fintech product, the other time you might work on the pharma company. And sometimes these experiences like doesn't stack up, especially in the domain knowledge. So you have to be very, very humble, to manage this wisely. And there are some pitfalls, because what might happen, if you don't cover this stuff. First of all, there's a burnout. There's a covering my ass mode, and I will explain what I mean by that soon. You are doing projects instead of product. So you might hate the project after a couple of weeks, and I've seen this happen lots of times when after this initial phase, our designers, even me sometimes, just starting to hate the project because you're not thinking about the end goal, about users, about the business, success, but just to meet the criteria you've set with the clients. So you lose energy thinking about politics rather than products, and you think about how to avoid clients' complaints rather than doing a great product. So I think that we all, like designers or experts or consultants, we all like to complain about UX maturity in our clients' companies, in our own companies even, forgetting a bit that it's our work and that our effects grows this maturity fastest. So someone has to do this work. And you often lose the opportunity, for a real change. And I'm not even talking about the clients coming back to you with another project, maybe. It's about changing the mindset, maybe forever. And it's very, very easy to fail. Okay, so that's the bottom line here. So my story would be about one of the projects. So we started working with Jako Poland. It's one of the biggest and companies in Poland. It sounded really, really cool for us back then, something that could elevate us to another level. It was a very long project from the start, and we really felt quite happy with having this partner. we had a huge respect. Shortly, we realized that there is a huge disproportion in our entities, so to say. So something visual for you. We are the small black dot here, obviously. But when I realized what's the real proportion, it was, this is the proper scale, and shown on the picture is more true, So as you can feel intuitively, we're from two different worlds, us being a small and agile, I don't know, let's say mosquito, and then being, just being huge, to say at least. So huge disproportion, just to show you a scale. We are a bunch of around 10 designers, plus some externals, and there were just them. Okay, so the project I want to tell you about, so the exciting part, we were asked to design a new trading platform. So to show you how big were the expectations here, please mind the next appendix. It was ePromac next, so the future had to be bright, yeah? The previous version was just a simple ePromac, this one was ePromac next. So the fundamental vision was to design a platform with a minimum entry barrier. Up until then, investing and trading was an activity more for professionals, nerds, brokers, and we wanted to make it something easy to use for a so-called Sunday investor. So you, me, everyone could just use this platform and know how to use it. So just to give you some context about the requirements, during our project, the Revolut announced their trading feature, and it allowed literally everyone to buy stocks with just a few simple clicks. It's present for everyone right now, I believe. So the trend back then became plain obvious for us. At the beginning, we felt that we are revolutionizing something, but Revolut coming up with quite the same idea, even put it in the higher level, and made it from one side easy, from the other side difficult for us to pursue this. But our client was convinced. So just some context about what were the expectations, the way of thinking of us and them. We were happy, as I mentioned before. We wanted to do something great. We really believed in making trading easy and accessible for everyone. We wanted to do something fresh. We wanted to invite users. We just wanted to start, and we believed that we could figure things out on the flight. But from our clients level, they said, okay, guys, you want to talk with the end users, that's perfectly fine, but our platform is being used by our clients' clients. So we have to, reach out to them, and they have to agree on that. And that's a lot of paperwork, lots of legal work, and we are not sure we're going to do that. Okay, the answer we heard the most often is, let's check that with compliance. In the end, and the funniest question of all, I believe, is, what do you want to do? And if you think about it, it sounds obvious, but often when you start a project, it's really easy to jump straight to the project without even trying to describe client what he will get in the end. And please mind, this is the more conservative client with a different approach, who likes to know what he is paying for, which sounds perfectly fine, yeah? So in the end, we ended up with a list of requirements that we were supposed to estimate. You have to know that these requirements were mostly prepared based on the first version of the product, with the old version, being on the market for, 15 years. And it was not, believe me, it was not user friendly at that point. So yeah, I was scared, that was the point. We had dozens of discussions with my co-founder, with our team, that things might get ugly, because, the rough estimates show us around 9 to 12 months of work. So a lot of design, so a lot of for only design phase, 9 to 12 months. So we were supposed to estimate the whole scope, having a little experience with trading and a strong will to do something new. And remember, it was still ePromac next, so expectations were huge, really, really huge. small, comment from my side, like starting a new project is difficult, and the sooner you acknowledge that, the sooner the moment we acknowledge that, help us to start thinking on the other way, because there is always something peculiar about this phase. Whenever it's internal project or external project, it's people often struggle with beginning, with starting stuff. So once again, being a doubter myself, I asked a couple of ifs, and they were as follows. So what if we could, know each other better, like us and client, before jumping straight to the work, and just think about it. It's like a honeymoon, after which you can say that you are meant for each other with your client, or maybe you are not meant for each other. It's perfectly okay to say, no, okay, I'm fine, I'm out. Maybe we could set a fixed price and scope so that the client's hands don't explode. We are very, I don't know how to say that. Usually designers don't like to set things on a fixed price, and we neither. But we have to understand the client's point, that they do love to do so. So maybe there is a certain piece of the scope that we felt quite confident with. Maybe this is something we could plan in details, and have some rough or even detailed estimates for your client. So we could bend our processes. And what's the use of your process if it only looks good on paper? So there's this very thin line when we have to believe in our processes because it's our code, let's say, but sometimes it's very easy to push a bit too far, and start to not seeing what the client's needs really are. And the final one, and the most scary one, is like giving the client final word. And just imagine, like, they could stop everything, change a vendor after a certain period of time with no harm feelings. Remember, with the great power comes great possibility. So it was really scary for us, but we really consider that. And as I will show you in a second, we implemented that approach. So basically, we focus on the intense first month, and we design a process with the client, asking ourselves these questions. Previous questions help us to come up with an idea of 1 month work, where we were able to provide value and were asked for provide something tangible, within a finite time and budget. So that looked perfectly fine from our client's perspective. Each week, each day even has its own activities. It looks well on paper, at least. So great, hooray. But what was the assumption? The whole assumption is, working intensively with end users, because clients usually come to us as designers, especially UX designers and UI designers, for two basic reasons, in my opinion. First of all, is a beautiful UI. So user interface, look of the product, sell stuff, and yeah, we can argue if that's okay or not, but this is how things are. And the second one is our ability to work with end users. So if there was, we ask ourselves a question, if there is one thing that we want to fight for, it's exactly that. It's working with the end users and having end users on board. So yeah, just fair enough, So as I mentioned, every week has its specific agenda, specific activities, has its own goal, and with a precise list of activities at certain points. So the first week is more about research and discovery, knowing the user needs, knowing the business expectations. So some talking, some workshops, a lot of defining stuff, defining vision, etc. The second one is more about regular sprint in our case, but the primary goal of this phase, in my opinion, is to present client or internal client with some concepts. It might be a paper sketch, or it might be a low fidelity design, it might be a high fidelity design, whatever suits you best. because it's really important to show at least few approaches. The couple of examples that we've managed to do after week 2, you can see that there are different approaches, that the modules changes, the priority changes, the value proposition changes, working more and more and having the final product concept in the end. So yeah, lots of work. Actually, when you have a couple of first concepts, it's quite easy to iterate on them and combining stuff with each other and asking client and end users constantly whether this is something they would pursue or use. So the third week is mostly for doing a UI design and a clickable prototype if needed. So if the previous week is about concept, so this one is about the look and feel of the product. And once again, we can argue whether it's important or not, but in my opinion, the client needs to see how it looks and works at some phase. So please keep that in mind. So we basically make things beautiful here. If there is a prototype needed, to present some interaction, it might be important, especially in the product like this, when there are many graphs and stuff like that. So this is the time to do so. And the last one is about validation with users, working a bit on a backlog level, some documentations, some reports maybe, and things like that. So what you have to remember that in the end, our goal is to have kind of a decision time, go or no go from our client. And you might call it a retrospective as well. So it's something that happens after the 1 month. You have a meeting, 3-hour meeting, and you talk about what went well, what do we want to improve. But finally, you ask ourselves and you ask client a question: do you really believe in the vision? Do you really want to work with us? But also, and that's most important, quite new, I believe, do we as designers, do we as a company want to work with them? And this is something I couldn't stress out, how important it is, asking your employees, your colleagues, whether they like the cooperation and whether they would improve something so that the cooperation goes better and the product gets better in the end. So just to sum it up, the whole process. So there is a 1 month intense month in our approach. Each week represents some different goals. First week being a research, second week being lo-fi products. I mean, creating concept. The third one doing high fidelity design or graphic design or prototypes, and the final week is about testing the final version. Each week has its own testing phase with end users. So 5 users, at least 5 users every week. This is something we do recommend. But finally, it's about the decision whether we make the product together. I mean, together as us and the client, because what I really like the most while working with the client, doing the agency work or the consultancy work, is the moment where at some point, especially after a month or 2, we feel that we are the same team working in the same direction with the same goal. And this is something we all should pursue in the corporation, in my opinion. So a few takeaways from my side, and something I would like to leave you with, is that the early stage of the project is, in my opinion, very unique. And think about it a bit separately. It might, last a couple of weeks. It might last a couple of days. But think about this phase like something different with a different goal than doing a great product itself. That helped us a lot, to tweak, to enhance this phase. So invest your time in this honeymoon. I like to call it a honeymoon because this is, the moment where you know each other better. It might be less, it might be more, but for us, 1 month works just perfect. Probably you need less time if you work internally, and you need at least 1 month if you're an external team, as we usually So make sure that your client wants you and that you want to work with him as well. It's a real hassle to work on a project you either don't believe in, or you don't like, or you don't get the client. So it's very, very important, to align yourself with the client and with the expectation, because it will burn you out. Showing tangible results ASAP, that's most important. Showing value of your work, stop talking about processes and stop talking about bullshit bingo. In the end, it's all about this tangible results and these artifacts that you want to present your client with. The truism, the process is only as good as the result you achieve based on that. We like to use UX, user experience design, as our shield, as designers, this is UX design. It has to be done that way, not the other one. And we even use it as our trench sometimes, but please stop doing so. It should help you and not be a blocker. So 2020, for people knowing to make things rolling. I really believe the times are changing, even faster during the COVID outbreak. Even 2 years ago, clients were perfectly happy having UX designers on board. I believe it was cool, it was fancy. No one really understood it, but it just felt right. Yeah. But currently, and I see this more and more often, clients started to know what to expect, which is good, and they expect results, So this decade, if you want to have a place at the table, I think you have to expect a bit more from yourself and start thinking about your impact rather than the fireworks, So think about the product success, think about how you can get things rolling rather than having only UX process, in your pocket. So ask a couple of questions to yourself before you jump to the next project. Is your process really your guide, or just a set of activities not aligned with what you are doing? Is your process understood by the client, and does your process speak client's language? Does your process allow you to deliver value, or does it create blockers everywhere? And finally, and that's the most important, who is really, and I mean really, responsible for changing how we all work? And yes, I believe it's you, it's me, and it's all of us, So because without changing our attitudes, it's really hard to expect that the clients will understand us more and more. So if you want to read more, there's an interview with Marcin, product manager of the product, and a sneak peek of the platform on the website. Yeah, and that's all for today. Thank you so much for your presence. I hope that I managed to change the way you think about initiating a new project, at least a little. If you have any questions or just want to grab a beer, I'm here, to reach out by phone, by mail, or by LinkedIn. So heads up and see you around. I'm switching off and looking for your question right now. 1 second.
Yes, Mateusz, thank you very much for your interesting presentation. We have 3 questions on board, actually. So first one, kind of controversial. Why really Asseco wants to work with you? They are a big IT company too. And what was the decision process not too long during working with Asseco?
Our decision process or their? I think
as a big company.
Yeah. Decision process was so long, and I saw the 4 initiatives, how the projects are usually initiated, and they managed to be in this third block. We spent at least 6 months discussing stuff, how we would approach things, what's the difference between us and the other companies, etc. And what I believe that convinced them the most are the two basic things. First of all, they like our portfolio visually, so they just bought with their eyes. Second one, they knew that we work with end users, and this was something new, something they didn't know. I believe, at least the team we work with. So they really liked to get this know-how. And the third part, and I think that was also important, and I haven't mentioned that before, is that they are based. The team was based in Gdynia. We are in Gdańsk, so this is the part of Tri-City. So we are now 15, 20 kilometers from each other. And for them, and I think that for conservative companies back then, before COVID, it was really important to work in person, to be present often. You know, the more present you are, the better for them, I think. So
yeah. And the second question is, do you still continue your cooperation with ASECO?
Currently, no. We have we have informal, discussions from time to time, asking how the product is getting along, how are the things rolling. What I know for sure is that we've made an impact in the company, because I know that they're having even minor projects right now, and they're looking for UX support. They're starting recruiting their own UX designers. So that's that's something cool, I believe. It might feel like this is not good for us because we are now no longer hired for the work, but really it's the moment that they've changed. It's changed the impact they think, the way they think, and how they approach stuff. And we are really glad with that. So we have a good contact, but we are not working at this particular moment with them now.
Absolutely, thanks for that. And the third question is, how during COVID time you work with your clients? So conducting remote design sprints. Do you have any good tips for us?
Yeah, sure. We've done a couple of presentations about that on the different conferences, actually, with my colleagues. So that's a good question to hear. Yeah, so we do stuff fully remotely from March, I believe, right now, and doing design sprints exactly remotely. There are a couple of rules there, and for sure, the first thing I like to say to the people that want to start with remote design sprints is that you cannot use the same rules that you typically use while doing regular design sprint. What I mean by that is that you have to be much more prepared as a facilitator. You have to prepare lots of things before. You have to work on some virtual board for sure. So if you like to use Miro or Mural, this helps. We really like to give some homeworks to our participants. So it's really hard to keep them focused for 6 or 8 hours a day. So we like to have a limit of 4 hours a day. It doesn't mean that we finish, after that, but we say, okay, guys, we will send you some little homework. It's a 30-minute work maybe for them, but it really, allows us to keep them engaged on the workshop and to get things done in the end. And the last thing, this is a low-hanging fruit, I believe, is that you need a co-facilitator or someone like that. So it's impossible to organize work on the one way, and to push forward with the design sprint. So at least 2 persons to manage that stuff. This is the total basic, and this is something I would recommend to start with. But these are good questions, and if you would like to ask me more, I have a whole presentation about that. So this is a huge topic. At least 30 minutes more.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mateusz, for your time and the presentation. That was very
Thanks for the
inspirational,
invitation.
actually, I can say. So thank you very much. Have a good afternoon, and I hope to see you
too.
in a real version on the next edition, or even before.
I really hope so. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you very much.
Thank you for listening.